Story 1. The substitute's smile. It was a grey Tuesday morning at Ridgewood High, and the hum of fluorescent lights filled the empty hallways. Students shuffled into Mr. Kearney's second period math class, clutching notebooks and coffee cups. Today was unusual. Mr. Kearney had called in sick, leaving a substitute teacher in his place. Her name was Miss Vell, and while she seemed friendly enough, there was an almost imperceptible coldness in her smile that unsettled some students. As the bell rang, Ms. Vell instructed the students to take their seats. She handed out worksheets in silence, her eyes scanning the room like a predator. Most students pretended to focus on the math problems, but some glanced at her with wary curiosity. Everything felt ordinary, yet something about her presence tugged at the edges of their unease. Halfway through the lesson, the intercom crackled to life. Attention, students and staff. This is not a drill. Lockdown initiate immediately. The classroom erupted into murmurs. Ms. Vell's calm voice cut through the chaos. Under the desks. Now everyone, stay silent. Hearts pounding, students dove under the tables, clutching textbooks to shield themselves. The lights flickered once and then went out entirely, plunging the room into darkness. A cold draft swept through the room, carrying with it the faint metallic scent of fear. From the silence of the hall came the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, and approaching. They weren't the soft, cautious steps of a child or a janitor. They were heavy, resonant, and unnervingly rhythmic. Then came the sound that froze everyone's blood, a door handle rattling. The classroom door shook violently, as if someone or something was trying to enter. "Stay down," Ms. Vell whispered, her voice tight but composed. "Whatever it is, it's out there." Through the small window at the front of the room, a figure appeared. It was a man in teacher's clothing, pale and unnervingly thin. But the most terrifying part wasn't the figure itself, it was the face. A perfect, exaggerated imitation of Ms. Vell's face, twisted into a wide, unnatural smile. Its eyes were hollow, black pits that reflected none of the light from the classroom. The students whispered among themselves, trying to rationalize what they saw. "It's probably a student in a costume," someone muttered, but the deep, guttural voice that followed shattered any hope of reason. "I know you," it hissed from the hallway, the words curling like smoke into the room. "Let me in." Miss Vell froze for a moment. Her hands trembled slightly, and one of the students noticed a tiny scratch on her wrist that hadn't been there before. She whispered urgently, "It followed me here. I don't know how." Fear replaced the whispers with silence. The intruder pressed closer to the glass, grinning wider, showing teeth that were far too sharp, too numerous, too human. The students tried to crawl under the tables, but the figure's presence made it impossible to move freely. It felt as if the air itself was pressing down on them. Then came the texts. Phones vibrated simultaneously, even though the school's network had reportedly gone offline. The messages were short, cryptic, and bone-chilling. "I'm inside now. Don't look at me. It's not her. She's here. She's here too." The students glanced at Ms. Vell. Her face was pale, eyes darting to the window, then to the door, then to them. "I can't stop it," she whispered, almost to herself. "It can take anyone's face. Anyone." The figure outside pressed its face against the glass again, and for a fleeting second, it was as if it wore every student's face at once distorted, overlapping, grinning grotesquely. One of the students screamed silently into their hands, eyes wide with horror. Minutes or maybe hours passed. The world outside seemed to warp. The hallway lights flickered, shadows stretched impossibly long, and the sound of footsteps didn't stop. Ms. Vell tried the intercom, but only static hissed back. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure vanished. The door stopped shaking. The lights returned to normal, and the intercom crackled with the principal's calm voice. "Lockdown over. All clear. Resume classes." The students emerged cautiously from under the desks. Ms. Vell looked around at them, her hands still shaking, her smile gone. But when the students tried to ask what had happened, she shook her head. "It's gone, for now." The rest of the day passed in a daze, but when students returned the next morning, Miss Vell's desk was empty. The staff list had been updated. Her name was gone, as if she had never been hired. Teachers whispered among themselves, uneasy. No one had any explanation. Security footage from the previous day revealed nothing unusual except a single frame showing a dark, humanoid figure pressed against the classroom window, grinning wider than any human smile could manage. Students who had hidden under the tables never forgot the figure. Some swore that late at night, even in their own homes, they could feel eyes watching them, grinning. And occasionally, On the intercoms of other schools in the district, a voice would echo faintly, impossibly distant. "I know you." No one was ever certain if it was a person, a ghost, or something else entirely. All they knew was that the image of that smile would haunt them forever. Story 2, The Girl in the Bathroom. It began like any other day at Lincoln Middle School, with the sharp clang of the first period bell and students filing into their classrooms. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and paper, mingling with the nervous energy of adolescence, anticipating another routine day. But that routine was about to be shattered. The principal's voice came over the intercom, clipped and urgent. "All students and staff, initiate lockdown immediately. Repeat, this is not a drill." Students froze mid-step. Teachers began herding everyone into the designated lockdown zones. Desks were overturned, chairs shoved into doorways, and whispers of panic rippled through the hallways. One girl, 12-year-old Hannah Miller, had just entered the restroom when the announcement sounded. She hesitated for only a moment before locking herself in a stall. At first, she thought it would be like any other drill. She crouched on the cold tile floor, arms wrapped around her knees, waiting for the shouting, the rushing footsteps, the eventual all clear. But the minutes stretched on unnaturally long. The usual drills never lasted more than 5 minutes. This one dragged into what felt like hours. Then the whispering began. At first, Hannah thought it was just the echoes of her own heartbeat. Then it became clear someone or something was whispering her name. "Hannah, Hannah." The voice was soft, insidious, coming from the dark corners of the stall. She swallowed, trying to steady her shaking hands, and sent a text to her best friend, Emily. "Someone's here. Don't come in." Almost immediately, her phone buzzed back. "Hannah, is that you? Where are you?" She typed back quickly, fear clawing at her fingers. "Bathroom, stall 3, locked down. Something's not right." A faint scratching sound began at the stall door. Slow at first, then rapid, like fingernails clawing desperately at the surface. Hannah held her breath, pressing herself into the corner, willing herself to disappear into the shadows. The lights in the bathroom flickered, throwing the room into intermittent darkness. Every flicker seemed to stretch seconds into eternity. In the brief flashes of light, she thought she saw movement, something tall and thin, bending unnaturally, its face hidden in shadow, hovering just outside her stall. She sent another text to Emily. "It's here. I can see it. It's watching me." No reply came. Then the whispering became words, barely audible, dripping with malice. "I've been waiting. You're mine now." Hannah's heart thundered so loudly she thought it might echo in the hallways outside. She pressed herself as far back as she could, but the shadows seemed to creep closer, reaching under the stall walls, curling like black smoke around her feet. Her phone buzzed again. She hesitated, trembling, before picking it up. The text was not from Emily. It read, "Stop hiding. It knows you." A scream tore from Hannah's throat, muffled by her hands, as the stall door suddenly rattled violently. Something on the other side hit the lock repeatedly, as if trying to break in. She could see it now, just a flicker of shape, impossibly tall, with arms that bent the wrong way, moving too smoothly, too deliberately. The intercom crackled. Normally it would repeat the principal's voice, but instead, a distorted voice emerged, a child's giggle twisted into a rasping sneer. "She's in here, in here." Hannah tried to call for help, but her phone screen went black. She pounded on the door with shaking fists. "Help, somebody, please." Her voice was swallowed by the emptiness of the school. Time lost meaning. Minutes felt like hours. Then, silence. Absolute silence. The scratching, the whispers, the giggling, they all stopped. The bathroom lights flickered one last time and remained steady. Hannah waited, frozen in terror, listening. She thought she heard footsteps retreating down the hall. Slowly, trembling, she cracked the stall door open, expecting to see a custodian, a teacher, someone, anyone. The bathroom was empty. Not a single sound came from the hall. Relief surged through her, weak and tentative, until she saw it, her reflection in the mirror. Except it wasn't her. Her face looked wrong. Her eyes were wider, her mouth stretched in a silent scream that mirrored the one she'd just made. And behind her in the mirror, barely visible, a shadowy figure crouched in the corner of the room, grinning. Hannah stumbled back, tripping over a tile. When she looked again, the figure was gone. She ran from the bathroom, following the echoes of normalcy, hoping to find a teacher or a friend. The hallways were empty. Lockers yawned open, as if the students had vanished into thin air. Her phone buzzed once more. She hesitated before looking. "You can't leave. We've been waiting." Panic surged as she ran toward the main office. Doors that should have been unlocked were sealed tight. Windows revealed nothing but darkness outside. It was as if the school itself had shifted, trapping her in an endless maze. Hours or maybe moments later, the principal's voice came over the intercom. Lockdown is over. Students may return to class. Hannah emerged cautiously, only to find chaos. Students and teachers were standing in clusters, some crying, some frozen in confusion. But there was a shocking detail. One of the stalls in the girls' bathroom was empty, its lock hanging open, and on the floor lay a single small shoe belonging to no one anyone could identify. Hannah's parents arrived to pick her up, but when she tried to explain, no one believed her. The bathroom was sealed for inspection, but nothing unusual was found except the single shoe. And sometimes, late at night, students and janitors swore they heard whispers coming from that bathroom, faintly calling out names, giggling, scratching, waiting. Hannah never returned to that store. She never forgot the voice, the scratching, the shadow, and she always felt, just beyond the corner of her vision, the silent presence of something watching. Some nightmares don't end when you wake. Some follow you home. Story 3. The wrong voice on the intercom. The lunchroom at Eastbrook High buzzed with students laughing, trading sandwiches, and scrolling on their phones. The aroma of pizza, fries, and cafeteria-grade mystery meat filled the air. It was just another ordinary day, or so everyone thought. Then the intercom buzzed, sharp and insistent. Students, lock down immediately. He's in the building. The room went silent. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Some students looked at the nearest teacher, expecting reassurance, but even the staff seemed unsettled. There was something about the voice that made the hairs on the back of everyone's neck stand up. It wasn't the principal. It was different, distorted, warped, yet chillingly calm. "Repeat it," said, the words echoing unnaturally. "Lock down immediately. He's in the building." Teachers quickly ushered students into the nearest classrooms. Doors were locked, blinds pulled, and lights turned off. Phones buzzed, but nothing would go through. The school's landline system was mysteriously dead. The announcement had left a heavy weight in the air, a tension that made even the bravest students shiver. Sophomore Jake Reynolds huddled under a desk in room 214 with 3 other classmates. His eyes darted to the door, then to the darkened windows. Something wasn't right. The voice, the wrong voice, kept repeating in his mind, like a seed of fear, growing faster than he could contain it. At first they tried to laugh it off. "It's probably some glitch," Jake whispered, trying to convince himself as much as the others. But the longer the silence outside stretched, the more impossible that explanation became. The intercom, which should have been silent after the initial announcement, crackled again. "Open the door," the voice said, slow and deliberate. "Let him in. He's lonely." The students froze. There was no human on the other side, no shadow, just the humming fluorescent lights and a silence so heavy it pressed against their ears. Who's lonely?" whispered Emily, her voice trembling. Jake swallowed hard. I don't know. We're supposed to stay hidden." But the instructions over the intercom grew more disturbing. "He's coming. He knows you. He knows your names. Open up. Let him in. Don't hide. He's waiting." The kids looked at one another. Panic began to rise like bile in their throats. They knew no one in the office was giving these instructions. The principal's voice, .com and recorded, sounded nowhere in the building. And whoever or whatever was talking now didn't sound human. Suddenly, a shadow flickered in the hall outside the classroom. It moved too smoothly, without hesitation, like a predator gliding just out of reach. The kids froze, not daring to breathe. Jake crept toward the door, peeking through the small window in the top panel. What he saw made him stumble backward with a gasp. A figure stood there, featureless in the dim hallway light, yet somehow all too aware. It didn't move like a person. Its limbs bent slightly too far, too fast, as though the laws of human movement didn't apply. And then, impossibly, it was gone. The intercom hissed again, this time repeating a different command. "Turn around. He's behind you. You can't hide." Jake's friend screamed, a muffled, frantic sound. Something pressed against the door from the other side, or maybe it was a shadow. The room seemed to shrink. Their panic made the walls feel closer, the air heavier. One brave girl, Lisa, whispered, "We have to do something. Maybe we can. Maybe we can run to the office." Before anyone could respond, the classroom lights flickered violently and then went out. In the brief flashes of illumination, shadows on the walls stretched unnaturally long. The figure or figures outside seemed to multiply in the reflections of the windows, appearing to loom closer, always just out of reach. Jake's stomach churned. "We can't leave," he muttered, voice trembling. It's waiting for us if we go out there. Suddenly, the intercom voice spoke again, softer, almost a whisper this time. They opened the door. Now they see. Now they belong. The kids glanced at the classroom door. For a fleeting moment, it creaked open by itself, as if pushed by invisible hands. A cold gust of air filled the room. One of the students screamed, scrambling backward into the corner. Something flickered past the open doorway, impossible to define. A mass of shadows, yet shaped like a person, yet not. Panic overtook them. The 4 students huddled together, whispering frantic prayers. The room seemed alive, walls breathing, the air thick with an unseen presence. Scratches echoed from the hallway, like fingernails on drywall. The voice, now layered with a chorus of whispers, repeated their names over and over. Jake, Emily, Lisa, Ryan. He knows you. Hours or maybe seconds passed. The shadows retreated. The intercom went silent. The lights flickered back on, but the hallway outside the classroom appeared normal, mundane, untouched by the horrors moments before. When teachers emerged, trying to calm the students, they found the hallways empty, eerily silent. Security footage would later reveal nothing, no intruder, no figure, nothing but the 4 students huddled under the desks, pale and trembling. But the footage did capture one unsettling detail. The intercom system had been active that day. All announcements had been sent from nowhere, and on the monitor, just for a brief frame, a dark figure stood in the hallway outside room 214, grinning but featureless, impossibly tall, and impossibly human at the same time. Jake never forgot the voice, the hallway, or the figure that seemed to watch him even after the lockdown ended. Late at night, he could swear he heard it whispering through his phone, or through the vents in his bedroom. No one in Eastbrook High ever fully recovered from that day. Teachers refused to explain. Students avoided the intercom. And the hallways, the same hallways where the figure had been, were haunted not just by memory, but by the lingering sense of something waiting, just beyond the corner of vision, listening, whispering, smiling. Some things, Jake realized, were never meant to be explained. Some voices, wrong, distorted, and unknowable, were never meant to be heard. And sometimes, the wrong voice could find you, even when you thought you were safe. Story 4. The Lock-In. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon at Westfield High. The halls had mostly emptied, leaving only the students serving after-school detention. 12 of them sat scattered in the dimly lit library, some flipping through textbooks, others scrolling aimlessly on their phones. Detention was routine, mundane, but today, routine would become a nightmare. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out entirely. Panic murmured through the group. The intercom crackled, but instead of the familiar voice of the principal, there was only a distorted, rasping whisper. Lockdown, lockdown. Stay where you are. Stay forever. Doors that had always been unlocked for normal students were now sealed tight. Windows refused to budge. Even the janitor's old master key wouldn't turn the locks. The students quickly realized this wasn't a drill. Something had trapped them inside the building. Okay, stammered Daniel, one of the older students. It's probably just the locks glitching. We just stay calm and someone will come. But no one came, and the air felt wrong, heavy, suffocating. The library, normally a safe haven of quiet, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Shadows stretched along the walls, deeper than darkness should allow, moving as though they had intent. From the corner of the library, a low scratching sound began, slowly at first, like claws against wood, then faster, like fingers raking across the floor. The students froze, hearts hammering. "Who's there?" whispered Emma, voice barely audible. Her eyes scanned the darkened stacks. Nothing, and yet, something shifted in the shadows. One student, Marco, bolted to the door to check if it was open. The handle rattled violently, refusing to turn. A faint, cold laughter echoed through the hallway outside. It wasn't human, but it carried the cadence of something that once might have been. "Stay inside," Daniel shouted, trying to maintain order. "Whatever it is, it's not human." The library lights flickered again, and in that brief flash, the students saw it. A tall figure crouched along the ceiling, limbs bent unnaturally. Its face was obscured, but its presence radiated malice. It moved too smoothly, too quickly, impossibly fast for a human being. Screams erupted as the figure lunged down the stacks. But when they turned to look, it was gone. Only a trail of deep scratches marred the wooden floor, leading toward the locked doors. "We have to get out," cried Lisa, shaking. "We can't stay here." Daniel nodded, trying to open another exit. Every attempt failed. The building itself seemed to resist them. Every hallway led back to the library, every door returned them to the same corner. Panic consumed them. The intercom buzzed again, a distorted whisper layering over itself. "You can't leave. You belong. The lock-in has begun." The students huddled together, clutching each other outside the library. The scratching intensified. They could hear footsteps that didn't belong to anyone in detention. Something or several things was circling the building, unseen, but aware of them. Hours or what felt like hours passed in terror. The library doors suddenly clicked open on their own. A gust of frigid air swept inside. Daniel, shaking, glanced outside. The hallway stretched impossibly long, impossibly empty. Shadows moved along the walls, twisting, crawling, peering out at them. A voice, low and wet, seemed to come from every corner at once. "Come or stay. Either way." Screams filled the room as the first student was pulled toward the shadows. 1 second, she was clutching Emma's arm. The next, she vanished without a trace, leaving only a smear of dark, viscous substance on the floor. The remaining students clung together, too terrified to move. Doors unlocked briefly, teasing escape, then slammed shut with a deafening bang. Lights flickered violently, revealing fleeting images of faces pressed against windows, eyes hollow, grinning wide. Daniel tried the intercom, yelling for help. His voice echoed in the empty building, swallowed by an unnatural silence. Then the lights went out again. In the brief flashes of illumination, they could see movement everywhere. The shadows had multiplied, crawling along the walls, along the ceiling, over the furniture. They were watching, waiting, studying. The intercom buzzed one last time, almost human in tone. "They can't leave. The lock-in has claimed them all." A loud crash shattered the windows. Something invisible seemed to sweep through the library, knocking students off their feet. When the lights stabilized, the library was empty. Not a single student remained. Only the chairs were upturned, desks scattered, and faint, dark handprints smeared along the walls. Morning came. Teachers and janitors arrived to find the building pristine, almost normal. The detention list had been erased from the system. There were no signs of struggle, no indication anyone had been there overnight. Yet the handprints could not be explained. Security footage showed empty hallways, no students entering or leaving the building during the entire night. But the janitor swore he saw them. Faces pressed against the library windows, hollow eyes, wide smiles, and sometimes, late at night, he would hear faint scratching along the library floorboards, as though the students were still trapped somewhere inside, unseen, but very much present. Westfield High reopened for classes as if nothing had happened, but no one ever volunteered for after-school detention again. The memory of the lock-in lingered like a shadow in the corners of the building, a silent warning. Some places are alive in ways we cannot understand. Some locks do more than keep people out, they keep them in. And sometimes, when the wind whistles just right through the empty hallways, you can hear whispers of the trapped students, faint, desperate, echoing endlessly. "We can't leave. We can't leave." Story 5. The final announcement. It was the last day of school at Brookhaven High, and the air buzzed with excitement. Seniors hurried through the hallways, trading yearbooks and final jokes. The gym was set up for graduation rehearsal, chairs lined in neat rows, banners hanging high with celebratory slogans. Everything seemed ordinary, festive even, but as the students filed into classrooms one last time, the intercom crackled to life. "Lockdown immediately. This is your final announcement." A chill ran through the hallways. Students froze mid-step, exchanging uneasy glances. Teachers tried to reassure them, but their own faces betrayed confusion and fear. Something about the voice was wrong. It was not the principal. Not familiar, distorted, layered, almost musical in its cadence, and yet dripping with menace. Students were ushered into classrooms, doors locked, blinds drawn. Phones went dead as soon as students tried to call their parents. The hallways became silent, heavy, as if the entire building was holding its breath. In room 310, senior class president Lauren Reyes huddled with 5 friends, hearts pounding. The intercom crackled again, soft and intimate this time. "Name, we've been waiting for you." Each student flinched as the voice spoke their names. Not just the generic warning of a lockdown, but personalized, precise, almost knowing. Lauren's stomach churned. Who could know all their names? And how could the intercom know who was where? A shadow moved outside the window, though the blinds were closed. It was quick, fluid, and impossible to describe. A mass of darkness that bent and flowed like liquid. And yet, there was awareness behind it, a consciousness that seemed to study them, patient and cold. "Stay down," Lauren whispered, trying to keep everyone calm. But the calm was fragile. Panic spread like wildfire. One of her friends, Jason, peeked through the blinds. The shadow had shifted. Where there should have been empty hallways, there were now dozens of them, pressed against windows, leaning around corners, faces pressed flat, eyes hollow, grins impossibly wide. Lauren swallowed hard. We need to stay together. Don't look at them, don't move. But the building itself began to behave strangely. Doors they had entered through were gone. Windows led back into the same hallways. Hallways twisted, stretched, and curved like a maze. Panic gripped the students as they realized that the building was no longer ordinary. It was alive, reshaping itself around them. Screams erupted when one student, trying to escape through a door, vanished before they could reach it. The others rushed to the spot, finding only a smear on the floor and the faint echo of a voice whispering, "Forever." The intercom crackled again, layering a chorus of whispers. "No one leaves. The school keeps what it teaches. You are ours now." Lauren's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to calm her friends. She could feel the presence of the shadows in every corner, crawling along walls, stretching across the ceiling, pressing close without touching. Each student began to vanish one by one, not in a scream, not in a struggle, but in a slow, eerie dissolving, bodies disappearing, leaving only their echoes, the faintest whispers in the air. By the time the gymnasium bells rang for graduation rehearsal, there were no students left. Chairs sat empty, lined in perfect rows. The banners swayed slightly, though no one was there to move them. The building hummed, alive, waiting. Then, the intercom spoke one final time, soft and triumphant. "Congratulations, class of forever." It wasn't the principal's voice. It was the same voice that had echoed through the hallways all day, distorted, knowing, victorious. And somewhere, just beyond human perception, the shadows smiled. Teachers arrived later, calling roll, confused and terrified to find every senior absent. No one answered. Phones were unreachable. Parents arrived at the building, only to see empty halls, doors wide open, and the banners swaying as if the students had been there only moments before. Security footage showed the classrooms full of students at first, then frame by frame, they began to vanish. Not running, not leaving, simply disappearing. The doors remained locked. The cameras caught faint glimpses of shadowy figures pressing against walls and windows, but nothing recognizable as human. No explanations were given. Authorities reported nothing out of the ordinary, and yet the school would never again be the same. The classrooms where seniors had vanished were sealed off, whispered about in staff meetings. Rumors spread of strange sounds, footsteps, whispers, laughter from empty hallways late at night. Lauren's disappearance was particularly haunting to staff who had known her. Some swore they saw a figure, vaguely human, gliding past classroom windows, always with that impossible wide grin. Others claimed that on rare nights, if you walked through the school in silence, you could hear faint echoes of names being called, of laughter frozen in fear. Students who hadn't vanished said nothing. They didn't speak of what they saw. Some refused to return to school, others refused to sleep. The memory of that final announcement lingered in the hallways, etched into the walls, as if the building itself remembered the day the class of forever disappeared, and the intercom, somewhere deep in the system, remained active. Occasionally, when the school was empty, a voice would crackle through, just a whisper, "We've been waiting. You're ours now." The class of forever had been claimed, lessons unlearned, trapped in a place that had become something other than a school. And the school waited, patient, eternal,